For you to understand what this Amazon Web Services relax. Good morning, people. Thank you for joining the session. We're going to introduce you guys to Amazon Web Services. This course is aligned or blueprinted towards the AWS certification training program. So all the topics would be covered under that. So these are the chapters basically that we're going to cover in this training program. We're going to cover, we'll first basically start introducing you to Amazon. And then there is something called as an Amazon Service EC2, which stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. Okay. And then once we finish the chapter, we'll see storage services using graphical user interface as well as CLI. CLI stands for command line interface. And we'll see the networking services in Amazon. That's chapter number 4, which is called as VPC and Direct Connect. Okay, and we'll see the databases services like RDS for the RESTful database, and we have Dynamodb service for the NoSQL databases. Okay, we'll see elastic load balancing and auto scaling. Okay, and we'll see the domain naming services, DNS services, which is called as Route 53. And we will see some application services like how to use these applications, how to deploy them. Okay, we have a Lambda, which is a serverless offering of Amazon. And we'll see ops work, security, and identity services. Okay, that's in the last chapters. And then we'll have a mock test. We'll see how you're performing there. And if you have any questions, we can go ahead and take those down in the last session, right? Okay, the objective of this training, this first chapter, is basically to get you introduced to the Amazon Web Services, all the services that we are going to discuss today. Okay, now, what is cloud? You all have a fair idea about what cloud is, right? Okay. Now, let me take an analogy and try to explain it to you what cloud is for you people. Let's take an analogy of a Hotmail. We all know Hotmail, right? So now, if you're sending a mail, how or where it communicates something like there's a Hotmail web server, right? Okay. So this web server will send and receive the emails to you, or it is nothing but a Hotmail console that you use or a graphical user interface that you use. Okay. Then once you send the email to this, I mean, you're actually accessing this interface to send an email. But who actually sends an email? There are some services. This web server in turn communicates with the service. Something like, let's say some example like a time service. Okay, timestamp service. So this timestamp service will basically say what time it is, how it should look in italic or bold. And that is represented on your email, how the time service has to be look. So there are certain number of services on the backend. So these services, so for example, the mail has to go to the, let's say Gmail. Then this mail basically goes and stores on the Google data center or somewhere this email is stored. Okay. Now this user, there is another user. So you're sending an email to him. He has to access it. How he'll access? He will access email to this. So basically now what I want you guys to understand is that there are three layers. One is a physical layer where this is nothing but server which is there in the data center. In the physical layer, this server went and stored. Sorry, on the physical layer, which is a server, the email is stored, okay, which is nothing but a virtual resource. This email is nothing but a virtual resource. And there are some services, all right. And there's an interface. Interface communicates to a service. Service does the work with the help of some physical resources. Okay. Now let's see how we can relate cloud to this analogy. Okay. Now let's say what is cloud? Cloud also. Okay. There is a user who communicates to the cloud. So when he's communicating to the cloud, that means what? There is a console. Let's say a web console that AWS gives. Okay, now I want to create a virtual machine or an EC2 instance. So what this through this web console, I will communicate to a service. Okay, it will communicate with one of the open ends of the service which is open for the public. So let's say this service is EC2. So my end result is there are some physical servers, okay, on the Amazon data center. There, with the help of this service, I go and create a virtual machine. So if you look, there's a physical layer. This physical layer is nothing but a server. And there is a service. Don't worry about what is EC2 service now. We will see that later. But there's a service called as EC2 service. And there's a console for the user to access. I can also directly communicate to the service without the help of console through something called as CLI. Okay, now this is called as cloud. Accessing here or creating some resources when I have demand. Okay, these are on demand. When I have a demand or a use of virtual machine, creating the resources on the physical hardware, which is not there in your data center, which is there somewhere out. And do I have to constantly ask Amazon, call Amazon saying that I want to create a virtual machine? No, there is no need to call Amazon. All I need to do is that create an account with Amazon, access the data center with the help of services. That is what a cloud is. Okay. Now let's see what is the definition here. Okay, it says cloud computing is a mode of sharing pool of configurable computing services on demand. So whenever there is a demand, I share or I create. There is no need for me to So cloud computing is a model of sharing this pool of configurable computing resources on demand. Whenever there's a demand, I share the configurable computing resources. It needs a minimum effort. There's no need for me to contact the service provider. I can access the console. With the help of a service, I can create whatever resources I want. Now, who are the vendors? We all know there's Amazon Web Services. Google also have a cloud. VMware, Windows Azure. Now it's majorly called as, it is called as Microsoft Azure. It's no more Windows Azure. We have something called as DigitalOcean, Liquid Web. Which DigitalOcean, I think it is a company which provides a resources that is not shared by other companies. We'll see what does that mean in a bit. Okay, who is leading the market? Obviously, with this side, we can make it out. It is Amazon who is leading the cloud market. All right. So this course that is aligned is with the help of this course, you'll be able to clear the AWS certified solutions architect certification. All right. Okay. Now you see, this is the slide that we all going to discuss. There are a lot of services. So basically, if you know all these services, how to configure, how to deploy, how to create resources, you are good to be an AWS administrator or AWS engineer. So what are these services? So basically, Amazon has divided their services into multiple categories. Okay. So what are those categories? So they offer different services. Why do they offer different services? To meet the needs of different customers. Okay. To meet the different customers, they have different services. Now, what are the services that I'm speaking about? Okay. They have a service. I'll make a note here. Okay. First, let's see what are the categories. There's a category called as compute. Okay. There is one more category called as storage. Okay. There is another category called as database. There is another category called as networking. Okay. There is another category called as management tools, security, and application services. These are the different categories that Amazon has put their services into. In compute, there are multiple categories. They have a category called as EC2, Beanstalk, Lambda, auto scaling, load balancing. Okay. In storage, there are a couple of services. One is S3, second is Glacier. I have another service called as storage gateway, and we have Snowball and EBS, elastic block storage. So these are the services which is there in category called as storage. These are the services which is there in category called as computer. I have another category called as DB. In the DB, I have something called as RDS. Okay, that is for relational database. I have something called as Dynamodb. This is for NoSQL database. I have something called as Elastic Cache. Remember, anything that comes with E, that means elastic in Amazon. Okay. Elastic Cache. And I have another service called as Redshift. Don't worry, we'll discuss all these services now. What are these services are? In networking, I have a service called as VPC, Direct Connect, and Route 53 for DNS. Okay. There are multiple services for management tools. One is called as CloudWatch to monitor the performance of the cloud. I have Cloud Formation, Cloud Trail, OpsWorks, and Amazon Trusted Advisor. We will see what are all these things in bit. Okay. I have one more service for security, which is called as IAM. That is basically to create virtual users. I have another security service called as KMS. KMS is basically for encryption of your data, which is there on the cloud. Okay. We have some other services for application, which is called as basically three services. SEC, that is called as simple email service, and SNS, which is called as simple notification service, and SQS, which is called as simple queuing services. So anything E is elastic, anything S is simple on Amazon. Okay. So, so how many services I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Right? So now by end of this course, we are going to look into all these services. All right? How to deploy, how to configure. But today we will have an intro of what these services are, why should we use this service one by one. All right? First, we will look into compute. First, we'll look into compute services. Okay. Okay. Now, compute service. Okay. In compute service, the first service I have is EC2. Okay. Now, what is EC2? Now, let's say there's a user. They're trying to access the cloud. Okay. How they will access? They'll access with the help of a web console that Amazon gives to access their services. Okay. Now, what is the service I'm accessing? I'm accessing a service called as EC2. Okay, there are some open points, endpoints. I'll communicate with this. If I want not to use web console, if I don't want to use web console, I can directly connect to one of the open hands with the help of a CLI. Now, what is the end result of this EC2 service? Now I have physical servers in my data center, right? So the end result of this EC2 service is a virtual machine. Okay, we can call it as instance, or you can call it as EC2 instance. So I will create a virtual machine with the help of a service called as EC2 service. All right. It stands for elastic. It stands for elastic cloud compute. Now, I have another service. Okay, that is the first service on the compute services. Now we have one more service on the compute. Okay, we will see what is that. The first one is EC2. Okay, elastic compute cloud. Okay, now the second service. What is the second service? We have something called as bean stack. So what is this beanstalk? So this beanstalk, now same example we'll take, user communicating with web console. He'll go and communicate with a service. Now he'll not communicate with now he's dealing with a service called as beanstalk. Here, what is the end result of this service? Let's say on my physical servers, okay, this beanstalk service creates a virtual machine and also it deploys my code. It also deploys a code. Now, that means in case of EC2, there is no code. So if I have to put a code, I have to manually access the server and then do the deploy or whatever it is. I have to manually do it. But in case if I am using a service called Beanstalk, I can create the virtual machine. At the same time, I can also put the code. Okay, in short, this is called as, this is also this Beanstalk service, you can refer to it as platform as a service. That means I also have a virtual machine and a code, right? I hope these two services are clear. EC2 service and Beanstalk service. Now let's see what is the next service. Next service, we have something called as Lambda. Okay. Now let me explain you the same example. Third service, nothing but Lambda. So what does this service do? Now here we create a virtual machine. When we create a virtual machine, we also tell how many vCPUs you want, okay, how much memory you need, all these things. Okay, then I mean basically you need to define what is the configuration. Now here, here your first service you're creating a virtual machine. Second service, which is Beanstalk, that is virtual machine plus code. Now Lambda, there is only code, there is no virtual machine. So that means there is no need for me to pay for the virtual machine. So what I'll do here, I'll communicate with the service called as, instead of Beanstalk, I'll communicate with the service called as Lambda. Okay, what will be my end result if I'm dealing with the service called Lambda? Okay, my end result will be, my code will come in, I don't know where it is. It can be there anywhere in the Amazon data centers. But basically, my code will be there somewhere here. But I will give an event. Okay, I'm saying this is my code. Okay, this is my event. So whenever this event occurs, you run the code somewhere in your, you run in any server. I don't care, but all I want is whenever this event occurs, let's say this code has to run. Okay, that is in simpler terms, it is called as Lambda service. Today we are just going to see the introduction about all these services. Okay, first service we discussed is EC2, which is creating a virtual machines. Second service is Beanstalk, create a virtual machine plus deploy a code. Third service is Lambda. That means all you need is a code that can run on anywhere in the server, anywhere on the data center of Amazon, only when a specific event occurs, and you are charged only for that specific event. Okay, I have one more called as load balancer. I have one more service called as load balancer. Okay, what is this? Now, for example, there's a user. Okay, they are connecting to your, I created a web server instance. Okay, this is a web server instance on the cloud. Okay, a user is connected, a user is connected, a user is connected. What if this goes down? I'll have to make sure that my data or my website is up all the time. I'll have two web servers. Okay, now, because I'm having two web servers, I'll have another layer of load balancing layer. Okay, I'll have another layer. So what happens if I have another layer? I'll have another layer of load balancer. So now all the load will come to this layer, and this will distribute the load among the multiple web servers. This is nothing but a service called as load balancer. Now let's say I have another service called as auto scaling. Okay, what is this service? Basically, let's say my web servers are like 100% full. I mean, the load is 100%. Okay, midnight, 1 o'clock. I can't get up at 1 o'clock and create a web server, right? I want that to be automatically done. Then I can write some rules. Okay, rule is whenever the load on my web server is greater than 70%, create a new web server. I'll create another rule. Whenever my load is less than 30%, remove a web server. I don't want to pay unnecessarily. Now what happens if the load is high? System will automatically create another web server. It is added to the load balancer. Now the load is shared between 3 servers. This is a service called as load balancer. All right, these are the compute services we have. We have a load balancer service. We have a auto scaling service, and we have something called as EC2, Beanstack, and Lambda. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the 5 services that we have on compute. There are different categories. One of the categories is compute category. In the compute category, we have these services: creating a virtual machine, deploying a code, or having only code, auto scaling, and load balancing are the services that we have on the compute services. Now we have, we'll go to the next category of services. The next category of services okay, the next category of services is called as storage services. Okay, the next category of services is called as storage services. Okay, the first service of the storage services is S3. Okay, anything on S is simple storage service. Okay, what does this mean? If you guys know OneDrive of Microsoft or Google Drive, right? Or Dropbox. Dropbox actually uses this Amazon S3 service. Okay, now what is this? We have a user has a file. Okay, the file has to be stored on cloud. Then I communicate with the endpoints of a service called as S3. So what is the end result? This S3 will go and store the file on some hard disk on the Amazon data center or AWS. This is simply called as S3 service. Okay. Now we have another service. Okay, this is the first service. There's also another service called as Glacier. Okay, if there's a company, the company will not have the importance of data varies. There must be some data that we don't regularly access, but you need that. For example, your purchase data of 10 years back purchase data. Do you really access the data every day? You don't do that. Then if you still want to put that on a cloud, I can use some cheaper services called as Glacier Service. So Glacier Service is basically cheaper service. Okay, so now the file, I'll go and connect with an endpoints of a service called as Glacier. So what is my end result? My end result, it is again the same. It goes and stores my file, but the performance is weak. Sometimes it may take 4 to 5 hours or even 7 to 8 hours if you have to retrieve this file, but that is still okay because you don't access this data regularly. Okay, that is a service called as Glacier Service, which is part of storage services. Okay, and we have another service in storage called as Okay, let me put this out. We have another service on storage called as EBS. Okay, what is EBS? I told you anything starts with E, that means it is elastic. Okay, EBS is elastic block storage. Now, what is this? Now, let's say we have a user connected to a console. He is dealing with the service called as EC2. What is my end result of EC2? The end result of EC2 is a virtual machine. Okay. Now, when I'm using EC2, what I'll tell EC2, I want, let's say, two virtual CPU. Okay. I want 10 GB RAM, for example. This is the two components that I mentioned. But if I want storage separately, if hard disk, okay, I can create with the help of a service called as elastic block storage. It is nothing kind of a USB external storage device for the virtual machine. That is a service called as EBS. Now I have one more service on storage, which is called as Snowball. Now, what is this Snowball service? Now, your data center is there in your location, all your data is there in your data center. You want to move the data to the Amazon data center. How do you move? Because you're purchasing virtual machines, you're purchasing storage to put your data on the cloud. So now how do you move your data from your data center to the cloud data center? For example, you have all your data is here. You have a hard disk, you have a hard disk, you have a hard disk. Okay, let's say this is your data. Now you have to move all your data to AWS. This is AWS. This is your company. Now, if you have to move all the data here, how you move? What is the option? The option is IP. Through IP, you do it. But how much time? It takes a lot of time. So to avoid that, I have a service called as Snowball. With this service, you raise a request to AWS saying that I want to shift my data. What AWS will do? AWS will send a truck, with a hard disk in it. Okay, the hard disk comes here. You put your data into this, and AWS will shift this hard disk again here, and it copies the data to the virtual machine you created. Okay, this is cheaper and it is faster. This is called as Snowball service from Amazon. I mean, one of the categories on the services, which is the storage services, it is called as Snowball service. And I have one more service on storage, which is called as storage gateway. Now, what is this storage gateway? You have your data center, you have a server. In the server, there's a lot of data. Let's say 1, 2, 3. There's a lot of data. This is, for example, I'm saying X, Y, Z. Okay, now you want to take the backup of this data. How will you take the backup? One more copy, or else you have one more copy of backup. You want to take the third copy of backup to make sure that even one server fails, another server fails, or your complete data center fails, you have your data. So basically, you'll take a tape backup, or else a disk backup, and a truck. Okay, you'll put the disk in this after taking the backup and making sure it goes to a remote data center. Okay, the idea of this is that you have your data here, you also have your data here. Even in case if this data center fails, you'll have a second copy here. But Amazon has a service called as storage gateway. Storage gateway. With this, Amazon gives a client on your data center. Okay, let me show you clearly how it happens. Okay, to avoid to having a truck go to a place, this is for you to take the backup. Okay, now if you have a server, Amazon gives one virtual machine as a client. Okay, now whatever data you're going to take backup, it also comes to virtual machine, and the second copy goes here. This virtual machine makes sure that this data is also copied on AWS data center. So that means you have one copy on your site, the backup copy, and second one you have on the Amazon data center. So even if your first data center fails, you have the data on Amazon data center that you can recover whenever you want it. Right? These are the service on the these are the different types of services we have on the storage category. We'll just have a quick recap of what services that we have seen till now. On the compute, we have seen EC2. We have seen EC2. We have seen Beanstalk, Lambda, and we have seen something called as auto scaling, load balancing. On storage, we have S3, Glacier, storage gateway, Snowball, and EBS. Okay, now we'll move to the next category of services. The next category of services is called as database. Okay, it is pretty straightforward. Okay, the next category of services is called as database. Okay, the first service that we have in the database service is called as RDS. Okay, this is for relational database. So what does it does? For example, a user will communicate to a console, web console. Okay, it in turn comes and communicates with a service called as RDS. So what it does, it creates a DB instance for me. It creates a DB instance for me. Okay, if I have, okay, we can also do it another way. For example, I create a web console. I can also communicate with service called as EC2. What is my end result? A virtual machine. And on top of that, I can also put a DB, but this is again a manual process. If I do that, how to manually configure the backups, manually do the deployment and all. But if I use an RDS, it automatically creates a DB instance for me and it automatically configure the backups. So there's a lot of work that is automated. Okay, this RDS is basically for the relational databases. So similarly, I have another service called as Dynamodb. I have another service called as Dynamodb. So this Dynamodb is basically for no SQL databases. This is for basically no SQL databases. Like if you have heard something like MongoDB, something like that. Okay, but this end result is the same. It also creates a database instance, but it is for a NoSQL database. RDS is for the relational database. Okay, we have one more service on the database which is called as Elastic Cache. Amazon Elastic Cache. So what is this Elastic Cache? Now we have a user, web console. I'll communicate with a service called as Elastic Cache. So what is this? This will ensure all your data is there on a RAM. All my data is there on the RAM. So what happens if all the data is there on RAM? Performance is faster. My performance will become better if my data is there on the RAM. So Elastic Cache, it will ensure that all my data is there on the RAM. Now I have another service called as Redshift. Guys, today we are discussing we're just having an intro about all these services, what is this service means. So if you have huge amounts of data and if you want to do some analytics, okay, this Redshift is a kind of data warehousing service of Amazon. Okay, if you have huge amounts of data and if you want to do some analytics, you can use this service called as a Redshift. Okay, these are the services that we have on the category called database. It is RDS, and we have Redshift, we have Elasticache, we have Dynamodb. These are the 4 services that we're going to see in detail in this. I think it will be on chapter number 4. All right. And we have another category of services called as network. In the network, I have the first service called as VPC. Okay, VPC is virtual private connect. Okay, now what is this? Now, for example, I have user. Okay, this is company XYZ. Another company is there, ABC. There's another company 123. Okay, they all can communicate through the web console. Okay, they all can communicate with, let's say they all are communicating with a service called as EC2, EC2, EC2. Okay, my data centers, let's say this is server 1. I have another server. Okay, this ABC creates one virtual machine. Okay, and here also ABC creates a virtual machine. There's also another virtual machine or company XYZ creates. There's also another XYZ, and company 123 can also create virtual machine because it is a public network. Public can access it. Now, what if I don't want this company 123 access my data? So I will create a VPC between my virtual machines to make sure they are part of a network by creating something called as fence. So I can creating a network between my virtual machines and making sure even though there is another virtual machine part of the same server, they will not get access to that. That is nothing but a VPC. All right. And we have one more service on network that is called as direct connect. So what is direct connect? If I have to send data or receive data from my data center to Amazon data center, how does that happen? It happens through an IP, as I told you before. So, but if I want the access to be faster, so this is my data center and this is Amazon data center. The communication will happen through IP. What is the reliability of this IP? Is this reliable? Not very much. What's the speed? It fluctuates. So if I want to have a direct connect, we have a service called as Amazon Direct Connect. So what I can do, I can request Amazon, I can lay a direct cable from my data center to Amazon data center. So what happens? It will be very reliable and it will be very fast. So that is a service called as Amazon Direct Connect. We are just discussing today, introducing these services so that it will be easy for you in future when we come to these services, what this service doesn't. Right? I have another service or network called as Route 53. So what is this service will do? 2 things this service will do. One is you can buy domains. Second one is it acts as DNS. So if you want to access a website called google.com, do you remember the IP address of this? You can't remember. I mean, even if you want, you can remember 1 or 2, but you can't remember every IP address of every website, right? So basically DNS is for domain naming resolution. It remembers the addresses. That is what this service will do. Okay. Next, we have another category of services, which is called as management tools. We have another category of services, which is called as management tools. So what does this management tools will do? I have something called as CloudWatch. So what does this service will do? For example, I purchase a virtual machine. Okay, I want to know whether it is working at 70% or 80% or 90%. How will I know? A user can, with the help of a console, can communicate with a service called as CloudWatch. What is my end result? The end result of this CloudWatch is it gives me visualization about the performance of my virtual machines, which is there in the Amazon network. Okay, that is what a service called as CloudWatch will do. I have another service called as CloudTrail. I'm sure you guys have heard something called as logs. What is the importance of logs? Basically, the importance of logs is for two purposes. One is for auditing, another one is for troubleshooting. Now let's say, okay, now we're discussing about a service called as CloudTrail. Now let's say there's a user. They're accessing with a service called as EC2, service called as S3, or Lambda. Now, the end result of this is creating a virtual machine. The end result of this is a block storage. The end result of this is some code. Now, whenever I use this service, EC2, it also tells another communicates internally with another service called as CloudTrail, and it creates a log. Log file will simply look like this. It records the user, okay, what is the activity, what time it is, the timestamp, and whether it is success or not. It records every information so that we can have a record. Even S3 service, once it is creating a storage, it goes and communicates with the CloudTrail. Even the Lambda goes and communicates with the trail. Every other service, it goes and tells the CloudTrail service that I'm doing this function so that this CloudTrail service can manage the logs. Got that, guys? Now we have another service on Amazon Web Services called as CloudFormation. Now let's say you have to deploy a two-tier application. Okay, when I say a two-tier application, first you have to deploy a virtual machine. After that, you have to deploy a database instance on the virtual machine. Okay, now okay, the first you have to create a two-tier. Now we are discussing about something called as cloud formation. Let's say you have to deploy a two-tier application. User, what is the step one he has to do? Step one, he has to communicate with a service called as EC2 to create an instance. End result is virtual machine is formed. Okay, now step two, he has to communicate with a service called as RDS. Okay, now database instance is formed. Now, if you have to do this over hundreds of times in a day, do you prefer that to do manually? We can automate to avoid mistakes or to make sure that the work is done properly. Okay, for that we can have a text file. We can push the text file by writing step one, step two to a service called as, instead of communicating with EC2 or RDS, I will give this file to Cloud Formation. Now, this service again inside on the background, it goes and communicates with EC2 and it creates a virtual machine. It goes and tells RDS, you create this for me. So just by sending one file, both my activities are done. That is a service called as Cloud Formation. Okay, now I have another service on management tools that is called as Trusted Advisor. Okay, now what is this Trusted Advisor? AWS Trusted Advisor. Now, what is this does is that, for example, I have a virtual machine, only 10% of resources are utilized. Now it is waste of my money, right? So this trusted advisor will give me suggestions if I can move this load to somewhere else, or if I can scrap this virtual machine, or if I have to add some more resources to my virtual machine to make sure that my performance, my resources are optimally utilized on the network. This service called as AWS Trusted Advisor is used. Those are some of the management tools that we have. We will discuss all of them in detail. Okay, now the next service is security. Okay, in security, the first service is IAM. This is very important, and we are going to discuss in detail about this topic once we come there. So now to just give you an idea what it is. So now every company has one person who creates an AWS account. Okay, if my company, if I'm creating AWS account, or for your company, if you're creating AWS account, and if your name is XYZ, that account will be the super user, or that account will be the root user. But I also have employee 2, employee 3, employee 4, employee 5, employee 6. Now, if they want to access this, okay, with the help of this IAM, I'll create a pseudo names for these people. That is virtual IDs. Okay, this is virtual ID for employee 1. Again, a virtual ID for employee 2, a virtual ID for employee 3. Okay, now, once this user connects, he has to log into, by using this virtual ID, he will connect to the AWS console. This user by using this virtual ID. Okay, this is nothing but a service called as IAM, which stands for Identity Access Management. IAM stands for Identity Access Management. I have the next service on the security category is called as KMS. So what is this KMS? It is called as Key Management System. Okay, now you have some data. You store the data on the file. Your data is stored here. Now you want to encrypt this data. So encrypt means it will generate some keys. So it is more secured. So I can generate these keys by using this service called as KMS. This is one of the security services that Amazon offers to make sure that your data is secured on the cloud. Okay, so now we will see the next category of services. The next category of services that what we have is application services. In the application services, we have 3 services. Okay, one is called as simple email services, simple notification services, simple queuing services. Now I'll just tell you what it is. For example, if you register with any of the e-commerce website, for example, like Amazon. Okay, so as soon as you register, you'll get an email saying that you have registered with Amazon. As soon as you purchase something, you'll get a notification that you have purchased. Your order will be delivered. As soon as your order is delivered, you'll get a notification that your order is delivered, right? So all this can be done with the help of this service called as simple email service. Similarly, your mobile also get those notifications, right? So that is nothing but simple. I'm not speaking about SMS, not SMS. Notification on your mobiles, that is called as simple notification service. If you want to queue the messages that you get, okay, that is nothing but simple queuing services. By using some HTTP request, you can queue your services. These are the 3 services that we have on the application services. We are going to discuss in detail about this. So just quick, let us go back to our PPT and see whether we covered most of the things. Okay, the compute services, there is EC2, which is creating an instant, and Beanstack, it is creating an instance plus deploying the code. Lambda service, only deploying the code, auto scaling, making sure that Virtual machines are scaled based on the rules that we write. Load balancing, load is balanced between the uh, multiple web service. Okay, we have storage, S3 service. So S3 service is basically simple storage services, and we have elastic block storage, Glacier, storage gateway, Snowball. We discussed about all this. Okay, we have discussed all this, right? Key management services, application services. Now, there are some things that come free. I want you guys to make sure that you know what is free. We'll create a Amazon account on the website. It is free of cost, but you need to have a credit card. It doesn't matter which country the credit card belongs to. Okay, and you have 750 hours of Linux or Windows, anything free, 750 hours per a month. That means basically in a month you have only 750 hours, but it is only for only one instance it is free. If you create another instance and if it exceeds more than 750 hours, you're charged. All right. You have a storage up to 30 GB and elastic block storage, which is free of cost. Okay, we will do all the practicals based on this only, and trust me, it is more than enough. Okay, we'll see what is zone, what is availability zone, all this stuff in the later class. All right. Just quick recap. The Amazon provides a lot of services. Among those services, we have something called as compute services, network services, application services, management tools, and database services. So we will discuss about all these topics in depth to make sure that you are ready to enter the corporate to work as Amazon administrator. All right, guys. It's my pleasure addressing you people. You have a good time. Take care.